I will call the January 8th, 2026 Budget Committee meeting to order. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, I'll start with you, Karen.
Karen Quinn.
Steve Welch.
Lincoln Lavoy.
Donna Danis. Carol Martin.
Owen Friend Gray.
Susan Levinson.
Jeffrey Morrison.
Robert Kelly.
Charlotte and Jillian are both excused. Steve Welch is Charlotte's alternative, which I would imagine probably for the near future, since I'm sure she's out more than one meeting.
Well, yes.
We'll see how good the shoulder is when she wants to come back.
Of course, we'll all be there for next week.
Yeah.
And then she's hoping to be.
Back to it after that. Excellent. Well, appreciate you stepping up and helping out. Open for public comment, not seeing anybody from the public. We'll move on to the review of the school's final proposed and default budgets. So, Mr. Corey, however you'd like to proceed with it, we're open to what works for you.
Sure. There's really not any significant changes at all since last month. I'd start with the proposed first. And that takes us to a dollar percent increase of 2.6% for the overall budget, which is a $522,333.96 increase over last year. The budget allows us to meet the goals that the school board had, which is an additional teacher. Using part of that money from the REAP money, as we've discussed. I know some people had a question on the cost of that teacher, and I'll go into that a little later on. And it allows us to do a new language arts program using the capital fund that was dedicated to that through the town, the textbook fund. So we'll be able to bring that program in. And it allows us to maintain and move forward our programming at the schools. I think it's a very good budget in terms of allowing us as a district to move forward on behalf of the students and the families that are in the town. And it allows us to accomplish what the school board set out before the budget season began. I know there were some questions from the committee that Susan and Melissa had raised. So we'll touch upon some of those before we start. And then I'll open it up to any questions on the proposed. The question was asked about what was the cost of the new teacher at Masters Step 5. That would be a total cost of $55,726. And we are proposing 0.5 of that, which is in the operating budget of $27,863. The other half will come from the federal REAP grant that we get. The question was asked just on the report itself regarding bolding and highlighting. Tyler, the company that we use for the software, really controls that, so we don't have that ability. They continue to make changes, some that are positive and some that I would say are negative. There was a question regarding how many people are taking health insurance buyouts. So there are 16 staff members taking buyouts. 6 of those are teachers at $3,000 apiece. 8 of those are paras at $1,100. There are 2 non-CBA, non-collective bargaining agreement people at $700. So we actually have $28,300 in the budget, and that was the same number as last year, which will cover those expenses. So we are good to go there. Let's see. There was a question about PT and OT services with the high school. Those are coordinated separately, so we're not sharing those. To give you an idea, if we tried to share those either with Cole Brown or Dover, you would get into the expense of paying for their transportation to go back and forth as well. So it would become a very time-consuming and costly nature of that. If we thought it would work out, we would absolutely look at that. I don't think it has a financial benefit to us at this point. There was a question regarding Our director of maintenance lines were going down. That's a result of a couple things. First, as you know, we did get the heating system fixed over the summer, and thankfully it's operating as expected. And as a result, we feel we can reduce some of the maintenance pieces that were in the budget under those lines for HVAC. We still have a number of dollars in there, just out of caution and prudence. The other piece was we've been able to do a couple of the projects because the work on the boiler came in at approximately 210,000, somewhere in that project range. And as a result, with the amount the road is authorized, we were able to now identify some things that, to me, should have been done with the heating system and weren't, but we've gone in and done them. And I'll give you an example. Over break, we had a couple of the ventilation systems that were in our bathrooms that are heating units that had rusted and deteriorated significantly, to the point of one of them, we had a concern about safety, that you were going to be in the stall and have it come crashing down on your head. We have the air ventilation units. A couple of those motors were very old, so the units themselves were okay, but the motors needed to be updated. So we had one in Mr. Mears' kindergarten classroom that was done over the recent break, so that's been done. If you've driven by the school at night, you might notice that we finally got the lights fixed. After coming out of one of my meetings, I realized we had no lights that were operating. So we were able to kind of push those forward into this year's maintenance budget, take them out of next year's maintenance budget, and again, reduce that. So we've really been active in terms of trying to push forward maintenance. There was also a question, we have some failed mini splits. Those are actually in the storage unit for our computers. And we've been able to, through our tech director's efforts, kind of repurpose those rooms. So that equipment now is not what I would say frontline equipment, but more getting ready to eventually be disposed. So the mini splits aren't as critical. But that money's still in the budget because at our last fire inspection, we were made aware that 12 years ago, we put in a mini split, but we just cut a hole in the wall. So if you looked at like that section there, just picture we had a cutout and half the mini split was on the right of that bump up and half the mini split was on the left of that bump out. And that was a fire rated wall.
Straddling two rooms, going through just under the ceiling to try to use one unit for two rooms. And
Right.
you cut through the wall to do that.
House contractor special.
Yeah, so it was, that occurred in 2012. The fire department was very gracious and said they understood budget constraints, but they really wanted us to get that fixed. So what we're doing is, same money that would have gone to those mini splits that was originally for the computer storage area will now be utilized to address that issue, because it has to be done. I mean, the fire department is giving us significant grace period, but at the same time, they would like that done. The last project that we had done over vacation is a walk-in refrigerator in the kitchen. The floor had significantly deteriorated. And it was either do something about the floor or going to need a new refrigerator in probably next 3 to 5 years. So for approximately $3,000, we had a company come in and they installed a brand new flooring sheet metal system. The board got to see it the other night. It came out absolutely fantastic. It probably gives us about 10 more years worth of life in that. The last major thing that we're moving into this year's budget that came out of next year's is, if you know anything about our kitchen, our food service director's office sits to the right as you go in the kitchen. Right above that office is a very old water heater. And it's appeared on a number of like building tours and concerns by contractors and other people, to the point now that we had been advised, they were very concerned because that could default. And we have an individual who sits right below that. So that is scheduled and will be done over February vacation. So those are the significant pieces, and there's really no options on some of these. I mean, they're known almost issues that we have to address. They involve safety issues, so we're taking care of them and doing that through existing budget lines. Okay, so that's the major issue there. On the computer side, there was a significant reduction. We do need a new intercom system at the building. but intercom systems have now been placed under the category of safety for the state of New Hampshire. And if you're not aware, about 5 or 6 years ago, the state started a very good program where they've been allocating about 10 million a year for schools in New Hampshire to address safety issues. And this year, intercoms or things like that are on that grant. Now, I can't guarantee we're gonna get it, but at the same time, if I put it in the budget and go for it and budget it, then it doesn't qualify for the budget. I mean, it doesn't qualify for the
Oh,
grant.
gotcha.
It'd be supplanting. So we took that out, we submitted our grant to the state. We'll know in the next couple of weeks, because we could limp through another year with the intercom system, but at the same time, it's just an opportunity. So we put that into the safety grant, and then we put in some what I'll call new door locks that are very user-friendly for little children, in case, God forbid, of an intruder or something of that nature. So those are the two significant lines that were discussed. The other questions that had come up, somebody had asked about the library, because our supplies had increased. And I wanna give our librarian credit, our supplies are increasing because she is an individual who buys book tape and glue. And when the binders start to go, she redoes them and gives us more useful life. So that is the area of the supply line of what's gone up. In terms of her library books in general, that line, she originally had requested 7,500, the principal cut that back to 6,500. We're really trying to push books as much as possible. Try to get some balance back between the device and books. We believe there's obviously a great use for technology in the classroom. But when we look at some of our reading scores, second, third grade, I would like to see maybe a few more books in kids' hands. So kind of moving to, I would call it from a traditional library to what would be more referred to as a learning commons, where we integrate both technology and traditional learning methods. So that's why there's an increase there. And the reference books, it went up about 5%. And that's just the cost, that is now all online software type of thing. So all those are just the increases that we see in those costs. And I think,
It was the librarian too, had the flat librarian nurse.
right, those positions will be corrected. The board made me aware of that. So those correct, because what happened is those are not CBA positions. So those positions are funded through individual contracts as opposed to the collective bargaining agreement. So that'll be corrected, but I don't think once those corrections is gonna even move it a tenth of a point. And there are some other areas, one of the board members last night brought up a line item, which probably brought up to me 2 or 3 times, and for whatever reason, I just keep missing it. It's a stipend type of thing that should have had an increase and did have an increase. So we have some corrections and we'll be all ready for next Thursday, but you're still looking at about just right around the 2.6% and the 1.9 for the default.
So they're not part of like the evergreen or anything, they just need to increase.
Right,
Appropriate.
right, so they're not in the default, because they're not part of the CBA, but they are in the proposed. That's the
They
correction.
will be in the
That's-
proposed, because they're not fixed yet.
That's correct, okay?
Where was the intercom technology? Do you know which
It
function or
didn't make it, what line number?
yeah, or line or function?
Well, it didn't make it into the budget, it went under technology.
Was it in the prior one that we saw?
No,
Oh,
we
okay.
pulled it out a while back, but that was a significant shift from the very beginning number. And that was simply because if it had made it too many rounds, the state may have disqualified us.
And then I noticed the tuition move-ins, so it's in the regular education, that went up since the last time we met.
That went from 6 to
65, it's now 65 in the new version.
Let me check on that.
Yeah, it was 25 the last
It's a
time.
25 increase. So last year was 40 and now
Yeah.
it's 65.
Right, and that was, I believe, a board.
Yeah, we added,
Well, we didn't have it last year, right? This is something new this year.
No, it was budgeted for 40,000
Was it last year?
for the current.
Yeah.
The year before it was.
The year before, FY 25,
25
it was 0.
It is in FY 26.
Now, is there a line we can, for move outs? You know, when you have move ins, like suggested,
Well, when
that way
you,
it's more transparent.
Yeah,
when
it's
I-
not- yeah.
when I have a move out, it goes back to the tuition line, or it stays in the tuition line, which isn't spent. So, I mean, they've never done that, just, I mean, that's something we can absolutely look at.
But the
We
line just
just-
shows underspent, is what you're saying.
The line would show underspent, but at the same time, we could have a move out could also be a homeschooler who for family reasons goes south for 5 months during the winter and then comes back on the books in the spring. So you don't, it's not like a move out and I can say there's $20,000 saved. It's a move out when it occurs. I mean, if we wanna look at tracking that, I think we could do that, but I don't necessarily know if I would track it through the line item.
Yeah, I mean, I just, I just never see move-in, this is something new, 21 years here. And then, we never had that capital reserve fund for, education, in case someone moves in. It was never an issue, never a problem. So I'm just seeing this and, not
Yes,
to
so I was wondering why the increase, given that we do have the capital reserve.
right, I didn't think we were gonna have both of them. I thought someone suggested that.
That was the conversation, I think, that at the last meeting, so we've got enough for, I think, 2 in the capital reserve fund right now. And then we added another one to the budget. So I think tonight what we're looking for is maybe a little bit of feedback around that, and we'll come back for our final
So
iteration for the hearing.
65 plus the capital reserve is 3 students.
Yeah.
So that's a
Zero.
total of 5.
Right,
And they're all around
had-
19, 20,000 now.
And
so-
last summer, I think we had 7 or 8 that came in over the summer, and we're starting to see additional move-ins, I believe, in the kindergarten area, so there are families coming in.
The only number we have at this time for move-ins is we have our highest number of kindergarten registrations this early.
so that'd be pre-K?
Kindergarten, right?
Like registering for next year.
Registering for next year in kindergarten.
They come from pre-K, right?
No,
Uh,
they're
not
moving.
Those would be known. I'm talking about new
Oh, okay.
individuals. We have 12 registered and 9 of those were not residents in our pre-K.
So that's, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So basically you take that 12 plus the 35 pre-K and that would be your kindergarten. You're
Correct.
getting it?
But I'm
That's
just
what-
saying-
that's
I'm
what
No,
just
I'm
saying-
there's usually many kids who don't go
I'm
to
saying
pre-K.
he's got
difference-
registrations, kids are registering now for next year for kindergarten, and he's got 12 early, this is kind of a little bit early. And of those 12, 9 are new move-ins
To Nottingham.
to the town, they're not in our current pre-K.
Right, so I'm
Why
just
do you
saying, when you,
consider them move-ins? Why
Yeah.
aren't they just
Well, they're,
students in that grade?
they're not move-ins for this budget line. This budget
Right.
line is only for high school move-ins.
Yeah,
Right,
We're
I-
just
I
saying
was
they're
giving you an
seeing-
What we're trying to say
indication
is
that
we're seeing a
there is
trend of-
volatility in and out.
Okay,
Okay.
but the kindergartners coming in, they're not move-ins in the sense
they're not
of,
move-ins for
No.
that line, but we
Okay.
are seeing some
Sure,
beginning
okay.
patterns of people
So,
coming and moving in from outside
this
of the town.
movements are only for high school kids? Does
It's
that-
only
This-
high school
This line
tuition.
item is
Yeah.
the tuition dollars that has to get paid to Dover or Co-Brown. When
Okay.
a student comes in as a high school student, so you move here with your junior in high school, we
And
have to
that's-
pay for that.
And then what's the
Essentially a
capital
net
reserve
move-in.
fund then for? What's that one for? Is that for high school too?
Same.
Yes,
Only high school?
right.
Okay.
And it's, so that's a net of 5 move-ins. So like if 4 move out, you have to have 9 move in to get to 5.
Right, cause we don't pay like a tuition for our individual like fifth grader, right? You move in with a fifth grader, they go into the class
Right.
and get counted as a head count.
right.
So you're predicting though that we're gonna have more move-ins
I think
than the reserve fund would cover.
I think your reserve fund, which you just recently started, is low when you look at the amount of building that's going on. And a lot of families, if they're looking to move, are looking for a good high school. And you happen to send your students to 2 very good high schools, depending on what they're looking at.
And
So-
we have a good elementary school as well. So
Correct.
that's what you're looking for.
So I mean, if you just look at our neighbors.
Yep.
Again, we're gonna probably pay almost the same amount as the house, for the house in any of these communities. So a lot of times the deciding factor is going to be the school system.
Agree.
So Sue, is the fact that it's split between the fund and the operating budget can be confusing, so, but the fund is low, so is the goal to increase that fund so that it doesn't have to be in 2 places, and is there a warrant article this year that contributes more to that fund?
I brought warrant articles to go over after we go through the budgets.
But I mean, is that the goal?
We do have, yes, so we've got,
So how
we're
much?
planning on 25 and we're looking for feedback again tonight, but for 25 into the tuition.
So that really only adds one.
So is the goal though to take it so that we don't have it in two places, so that it comes out of the operating budget and we depend on the fund?
I think it would be nice to have it in one spot and be able to.
Okay,
So an alternative would be to put 65, not from the balance, but you could put 65 raised and appropriated into the reserve fund instead of putting it in.
So just raise and appropriate with a tax impact and don't worry about taking it out of fund
Cause this is a
balance.
taxing.
And just push it out of there
mean, that's
into,
kind of-
okay.
And if
If
it
you
gets
do- if you-
voted down. as
If
a
it gets
warrant
voted down,
article,
you're
Right,
potentially
you're-
Yes.
right.
Right.
Cause
Right.
like, if the if students move in
Yeah.
and then start attending the high schools, we have to pay for it regardless, which
Yeah.
means that it comes out of some other line item in the budget.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, cause it never, was never an issue for 21 years.
But it
And
was
there always
budgeted.
300,000
That's not-
surplus, 900,000 surplus, there seems to be hundreds of thousands every year in the budget.
That's not accurate because it was
That's not
budgeted.
accurate.
There was a move-in line that was budgeted previously. I know in 25 it was 0, but
Okay.
there was a line
How about
previously.
24?
I'd have to go back, but when
So-
I was on the budget committee
That's just,
6
okay,
years ago, it was a line.
there was a line in there 6 years ago.
But I agree that like most of the time it's absorbed, the ins and outs either offset each other.
Well, yeah, when you see hundreds of thousands in surplus, it's not going somewhere.
But there is more building now going on in Nottingham, I think, than there has been in other years.
Yeah, but still, you look at the enrollment numbers, though, they're going down, so it can be more building, but enrollment's still going down. I had a,
Enrollment's
Don't-
going down?
We actually
What's
just
going
looked
down?
at this on
It-
Tuesday, so
Did
you
you?
you didn't hear it.
oh, okay.
And the trend I think you looked at,
It
Suze,
was back
was
to
10 years?
1992.
Oh, okay, so
400 and
30 years.
408 students, I think, or 418.
The long-term trend has been a steady climb up.
No, this is from 1990 to 2018.
That's
I
probably the
just
one that.
Saw that one.
2018 was also,
Think this
years
approach right
ago?
now, this year though, you know, helps to, if that fund does get voted in as a warrant, it helps to start to build it. And then this approach gives us something if there are movements.
It already is created it was a warrant a couple years ago to create the fund, so that's why it
Also, this is
has
to
money
fund
in
it
it
yearly.
now,
Yeah.
yeah.
so my
Part of it I was looking
my
at
only
the
point
shoulder
is that it's confusing to voters if we've got that in two places, right?
I
So,
think eventually, okay, I could see it being taken out of the budget and only done if there's surplus. But I think the piece with the surplus is, you're never guaranteed there's a surplus. I know you've been running surpluses, but there's no guarantee that it would be there. And 5 students is $100,000. It's in a small, relatively small budget. It's not that easy to just find $100,000.
I mean, the other approach would be do the warrant article that says put $100,000 from a surplus, tax implication 0, and just set the fund up. Then have it as like a.
But the fund
No, I know the fund is set up, but it's only
For all
got
the
it's got 40K, which
It's just like
isn't
2
enough,
students, basically.
is what we're saying, right? And so if we're saying, well, we really wanna cover 7 to 10 students as a, the housing development went in, set the fund up, and then just have it sit there.
I think what you have done with special ed over the years, looking back, that's a solid fund. It's 220-something thousand, but that's half of one child if it's the child with significant need moves in. I mean, that's the problem. It's a high school tuition is now $23,000. If that child happens to have an IEP, that's another $7,500, so that child could be $30,000. Go to one of our high schools, and they both approach special education differently. You know, from a charging point of view.
So your recommendation at this point wouldn't be to put it all in the warrants. You're more comfortable with it in the budget as presented because that gives you some flexibility in the beginning when the budget is, or that reserve fund is low, right? Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, I tend to wanna go to capital accounts that you've established when there's a need. And when you can, show that 5 houses came in. I mean, being off by a couple because a set of twins moved in A, we should be able to find a good portion of that in the budget, but B, we should have a line item in case. But I would have, again, looking to guide people for the long term, I think eventually you would be into a capital reserve account and funding it that way. And then just to talk about the budget, I mean, we're about 18 months away from running this budget, or when we started we were. And if we come in at 97, 98%, that's a really good budget. But that means we have $400,000 or $500,000 to return to the taxpayers. I mean, that's a pretty good budget, it's too volatile to get closer than that, because then you risk going into a default.
Is there a, could you just speak to the rationale on how you come up with the 65,000 versus being of like 2 students times the 25,000 that you give?
Yep, we had the 40,000 in there. When we went back to the board recommended at the, I think it was December 17th meeting, that we increased that.
Okay.
So basically, we added what I would call a third student.
And Co-Brown is like 19-ish, if I remember from the contract that just came through, and you said Dover's like 23, so it's kind of splitting the difference a little bit on.
Yeah, I think Co-Brown's a little over 20 now, but Co-Brown is for an IEP student, it's $7,500 for the IEP, whereas Dover is $500.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just how people do business.
But it's not, no matter what you do, it's not gonna just be a straight multiple. Like,
Correct.
Cause you also don't know which direction the student's gonna go.
Like, and right now, we have preliminary numbers for 8th graders, 38th graders going to Co-Brown and 17 going to Dover.
But you also have historical data on the move-ins?
I don't.
I know at some point, a few years back, there was some, there was a lot of conversation about this and whether we should create that move-in line or not. And I think there was some history.
I think
Go back
relying
and
on the
take a look at it.
historicals though is backward looking like that doesn't really cover what could come up in the future.
I can tell you,
Based on building today.
Yeah, I get
I
that.
think the historical data would be the enrollment reports, so if you go back, if you could track through all
That's
the
true.
enrollment reports, but they don't track,
And that's
the SAU
coming up.
doesn't track individual high school students.
I can tell you there's been a lot of volatility since I've been here, just with, in August, some students changing their selection for a school. Maybe their friends went to the other school, now they wanna change.
But that's not a
fine.
move-in.
That's not a movement, I'm just talking about, we've seen a couple, as I commented, students go to homeschooling, but the homeschooling's for a period of time and they've been
Yeah.
doing that
A
forever.
lot of times, high school.
Again, not move-ins, but again, my caution to the board was about the amount of building.
But you can also, like, if you have the historical data, tell me I'm nuts, but if you have kind of like historical data that shows your move-ins, but you could also, for this year's budget, you can look at the building in town. For any year, you can look at the building, and then there's some number that is used to estimate how many kids there are going to be per new
I mean,
house.
you need to have like the building like issued occupancy permits more than anything else, so you know that like as of that year, 10 domiciles became like accessible for people to live in, not that the building permits were issued.
Yeah, I still think you can
I
get
think
at
that,
it.
maybe one way to look at it would be, we have assignments. So the board signs off on the assignments for the students and administration creates those. So anything that happens over the course of the summer, you have those individual, so those may be filed somewhere in paper and there'll be dates that would happen. So you might be able to just take a look at that.
A lot of effort to try
A lot of
to
effort. Yeah,
go
there'd be
through
some
all the
effort.
paper to figure out.
But
When
I
they
think,
moved in.
I think I agree with the budget committee sentiment that eventually it shouldn't be in both places.
Yeah, the question
I think,
is there.
Being here 5 months, I would like to see that caution in there because of the budget. And then I prefer and would recommend that we start to move to more of the fund balance. We do have a warrant article for that tonight, so you could change the wording to that, you could do an up to a certain amount. Because again, as you know, the warrant articles are funded by the order they're listed. And once the fund balance has been completed, the money's gone. But at the same time, I think we're always trying to give a portion back to the taxpayers. Like this year, we did the $75,000 for 5 different articles is what you did last year in your warrant. Those were all funded. And we discussed those a couple months ago. And then we did the unreserved fund balance, so you have a $200,000 safety net. So there is a safety net that if a special ed child came in or a number of students came into a particular high school, you do have a fail-safe piece. And then we gave 100,000 back to offset the tax rate. And that's kind of the way I view moving forward is what I would recommend.
Is the line item specific to a move-in, or is that situation of people deciding to change schools?
Well, the changing of school is such a minimal dollar amount, so let's call it, 20 to 21, just for numbers. So if you go from Co-Brown to Dover, that's not really a big deal. It's a little bit different if you go there and it's IEP based, because that's an extra $7,500 that wouldn't have been budgeted.
Okay.
But I don't disagree with the point that was made. It's a large budget. I should be able to find a certain percentage. But at the same time, I need to find a certain percentage if something breaks in the building.
Sure.
And I think you all understand that.
Like questions, if no one else had any. That new teacher hire, when you said it's 55,000, that doesn't include the benefits then,
No,
right? So,
because
so it might be, you know what I mean, so what's the healthcare and the pension?
fully loaded, it's probably gonna be closer to 90 to 100,000 would be my
Yeah,
guess.
that's what I mean, so it's kinda, you know what I mean, so the benefits doubled it, basically.
The benefits will always, yeah.
Okay.
A fully loaded position is probably gonna be 70 to 90, but I don't know, like, the best person that interviews may be right out of UNH, fantastic, and be on the low end of the scale. This just gives us the ability to hire maybe really good people from surrounding districts that we'd like to see come here. It's a very competitive market for teachers right now. We're not seeing the numbers come out of college like we used to. So you cannot bank on that you're gonna be able to find 3 new people from UNH. So that's where the salaries become very important.
Another question, please.
Sure.
So if we have a new teacher, where's the class gonna go? Cause I heard we don't have any room in the school. People are teaching on the stage in the hallways, so what's,
Well, we are looking at taking a section of the library
okay, so.
and turning that into a classroom. We're also, first step though, we're going back and reviewing the master schedule. We've always traditionally tried to stay away from having older children with younger children. So we don't necessarily want an 8th grade class in the same hallway as the kindergarten. That might not go well. But at the same time, I know Jeff and Ellen are 2, I'll call academic administrators along with Sarah, looking at the master schedule to see if we can alleviate that stage situation. And the class starts on the stage, just so you know, it's a social studies class, which is very project-based. So I'd say by 10 to 15 minutes into most classes, they have the cafeteria as well. It's not ideal, but I went in buildings 100 years ago and our facility's pretty good.
One more question, please.
yeah.
This language arts program, so what language is that? And is this something new? Is this after school? Cause my kids did this, it was after school program and the parents paid for it, not the taxpayers. So, and how much is this program gonna cost the taxpayers?
Well, this is your reading program.
Oh, okay, so it's not
called-
language arts.
It's called language arts because you're doing writing, reading, everything is together now. So you might have had a writing class when you went to school and a reading class. Now language arts is the umbrella for that side of the academics, so called math
Oh,
and
so
science.
it's not a Spanish class or French
The
class?
kids
No.
sometimes call it ELA, is
Right.
what the kids call it.
Yeah, it's your reading textbook that it's an update to programming that we already have and have had for many, many years. When we looked at the overall cost, I wanna put a price tag of about $130,000. That was in the first round of the budget. I didn't agree with that for a couple reasons. One, because that would have been a 6-year purchase. And if 2 years in, our teachers don't like it, we're locked in for 4 more. So I don't think from a curriculum standpoint, that's a proper way to do it. Then we started to look at the breakdown by year. And then as I came on board and realized that we had the capital reserve textbook account, I believe we're looking at probably having enough money in there right now at about 45,000, right around there. That's gonna fund the first 2 years.
And what grades is this for, basically?
This is yeah,
Right through
yeah,
8, I
it's
believe.
gonna go,
Oh, K through 8
Yeah.
or pre-K through 8, okay.
yeah. We did, you may recall, we did the math program last year. So this is the cycle, they use 6-year cycles here. So math was last year and language arts was this year. And we haven't made a selection of that, and that was the other reason I didn't wanna have $130,000 in the budget when the teachers could come back to me and say, we don't wanna change. I mean, cause we're evaluating a few new programs, but we also have our program that has shown really good results. There are some weaknesses and flaws that we're looking at, but at the same time, we won't have a proposal to the board probably to March or April from the data from the pilot and what the teachers think. So I don't wanna have $130,000 and they come back and say, we'd like to stay with the same program.
And there's a lot that augments too. I think we went from that Leslie University, which is a whole language,
Yeah.
way back,
Yeah.
into Storytown
Yeah.
and now Wonders. But there's all those other pieces that are augmented to it as well, addressing like phonemic awareness and
Correct. And this also goes back to the conversation we had just a little while ago about the library. I mean, my biggest thing is getting kids to find books that they wanna read. You know, so that some child might go in and grab a sports book and somebody's gonna grab a murder mystery or whatever it is. But that's truly where they're gonna make the significant gains in reading. You know, it's kinda like you kind of fake them that it's not really school if you can get them to really start to enjoy reading. And it's not easy, and we still see that discrepancy between the male and female reader. And it's, the male, it's really, you have to target history, sports, you know, those type of things are gonna grab them. And then once they get into that first book and start to enjoy reading, you can then expand them by saying in a particular grade, everybody's gonna read a murder mystery. Or everybody's gonna read X. And we do have, you know, looking at the results that came back, we have a little bit of a dip in reading scores, and we're trying to find out if that's the cohort, because it doesn't match up with the rest of the building, or that's something in the program as well.
Which grade is that, that's dipping?
I think that was fourth, was that the
third and fourth
third
together.
and fourth, thank you.
So did COVID affect that or anything?
Well, that's
Third
just
and
a,
fourth, so,
that's a big area, because that's that, you know, you're learning to read and then applying your reading that Mr. Corey's talking about, that ability to apply and really acquire books and enjoy them, so it's a focus right now.
So,
Try to
and
figure
that, you know, that raises the educational concern, because I just told you, we'd probably take a section of the library for that classroom, but yet we're trying to push reading. So we have to figure that out as the educators, you know, books on a cart. You know, as you walk in the door, I mean, 10 years ago, who would have thought we would see all those little libraries, the swap things, and now they're everywhere. And that's something our kids are gonna grow up with. So I think, when we look at libraries, I think they will see the evolution from what we knew as a library, and as it continues to evolve through communities across the United States.
one more question, please. So this new classroom, how many students could that possibly hold then?
It'll be
Per
a
class.
class.
Based on how many students per class,
I
roughly?
would call it 22, 23.
Okay.
So a full classroom,
Okay.
probably
Enough
somewhere
room,
900 to 1,000 square feet, give or take, where we have to put the wall in the library.
okay.
And I'll be honest with you, it's not necessarily being well received by staff, but at the same time, they know that's the reality. I mean, we've looked at the art room, we've looked at the library. With the board just last night, we gave them a tour. I mean, there are so many spaces that used to be, the computer lab is now 3 different spaces for special ed. You know, and that's where that wall is with my mini split, that's a mess. So we've taken every little space. The teacher's room is probably, from the edge of the TV out to this chair, back to the wall. Everything else has been taken for special ed. And in that space, you have 3 copiers for the building, as well as the one table and 3 chairs for the paraprofessionals to eat at. So I mean, the building is pretty much maxed out, but at the same time, I have cautioned the board that, you know, we need to be thoughtful and methodical as we move forward.
Are you still planning, or what are, so to do the library and the renovation, to put that wall in or whatever, is that still planning as like a warrant article then, or?
No, that'll come out of the maintenance budget, because you're looking at 2x4 sheet rock, very inexpensive, and not that you ever wanna waste money, but if in 3 years, you know, you build something else, you can take that back down relatively inexpensive and have your entire library back.
Desk and chairs,
I'm sorry?
desk and chairs, you're gonna have to take that,
Furniture.
how are you gonna fund that?
We have furniture for the children's chairs
Okay,
from other classrooms. Cause like, those chairs are just on the stage now, so that's not gonna be an issue. What may be an issue is we may have to figure out where we're gonna store some of our library material. But then I would come back to the town and ask them if they would let us store in our wonderful SAU office. Cause we have that big space there. I don't know.
How about the locker rooms? Is there available space out there?
Are they being used?
Well, the locker rooms are not used anymore.
Used for storage.
Yeah, I mean, we use them for storage. We have probably 200 chairs in a storage thing that was built. But your showers are just obsolete. There is not a child who showers anymore before PE or after PE or after sports. It's all out to the car and they go home. That's the world we live in now. So you have that space.
Yeah, we never showered in kindergarten either, you know what I mean? Or
No, I'm
first
talking
or
like-
eighth grade, you know what I mean? That just
Older
wasn't,
kids,
Like,
no, older kids
7th and
do.
8th graders.
Like teams coming to
but like
visit.
after the, you know,
Yeah,
after
that's
the
just
basketball
not-
game tonight, 20 years ago, kids would have showered.
Is there a statutory requirement to have the locker rooms?
There's still a statutory requirement on bathrooms. So when you do your calculations
True.
in terms of bathrooms, I'm guessing, I don't know this for a fact, that those were calculated in. Because your PE teacher still sends those kids into those bathrooms, yeah.
We
Yeah,
did,
keep
we
those,
put
but-
up gates in there about
Yeah.
4 years ago, 5 years ago. Yeah, time flies, and so that we could get some of that storage and put it behind those gates and then maybe have more use, but
But the way those are laid out, the bathrooms are in the front anyway, so there
Yeah.
would be
You got a
space
sink
to
and some
use
bathroom.
the storage behind there.
Correct. You know, again, if you're familiar with the building, you probably know where Scott's office is on the first floor, down the end, the maintenance. Above that was a similar maintenance closet. That's now special ed services. And all our storage, paper towels and all that has been built into a closet there.
we had to cover that closet up because you could still have some of the smell of the maintenance closet and some chemicals, so that had to be changed out. Cut a hole in the wall and put a window in. I mean, we're to the point where we're, you know, using every available space.
Any other questions on the budget?
Just a quick question on this sheet. This is an Excel version?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I'm not really certain exactly why, but the percentages don't seem to be working.
Okay.
The increase is actually 3% if you do it out, not 2.6. I'm not really sure what happened in the formula, but just something to look
Okay.
at before we start announcing different percentages and then
Right, no,
have
I
somebody
will,
do the math in the audience and
yep.
So in the town budget, we're representing that percentage based on the offsets and everything with surplus and the warrants.
Mhm.
And then here we're not.
Well, because this isn't a tax cap, so it doesn't go into any sort of a tax cap calculations. There will probably be some discussion to that.
Just that they're different, so that when they see the numbers, that
Yeah.
And I will check that, thank you for catching that, and we'll have it, I'll talk to Paul tomorrow.
Something with the cells isn't.
I'm guessing, cause we did run into that somewhat.
I'm sure it's just referencing the wrong, you grabbed 25 instead of 26 or what.
Yeah. Mhm.
27 instead of 26, whatever.
Good catch, though.
Okay, look at spreadsheets for a living.
The board's permission, I have a warrant for review, it's just a draft. Okay, the board has not taken positions on the entire warrant, and because they wanted to leave it open for discussion. And we have some questions, but I'll run around and get these out.
So we've gone over these before our last meeting. We had a tentative order set up, and last night we firmed that up and looked at some dollar amounts. But we would like to hear your feedback. Some of the dollar amounts are a little bit outside of what you've typically seen before.
Thank you.
So Sue, is the board meeting again before the public hearing?
We are going to schedule one prior to the public hearing.
Okay, so election of officers, we have 2 school board member positions open. We have the school district moderator and the school district treasurer. Article 2 is just the standard language. Once we finalize our final numbers, which will be very close to what they are tonight, you'll see the proposed and the default placed into those.
is Article 3 purposely
No.
left out?
It's not.
Oh, I think it's probably because Article 3,
No,
we talked about last Tuesday, and so this is probably just the older iteration.
yeah, wait, I have,
You want me to just do those numbers for that?
yeah, because I have it in front of me too, and I apologize, because my copy, I have Article 3.
Article 3 is just gonna be the language for the teachers' contract. Yes, the teacher's contract is gonna be a 3-year contract. Cost for year 1 is a 6% increase. 247,585.96.
Is the 6%?
6%, yes. Year 2 cost is 192,505. I don't know if there was some cents there, I just had double zero.
No, I have it right here.
Okay, go ahead, you can,
Same number you have,
okay,
so 192,505 for year 2, go ahead.
and then more, for year 3, it's 195,687.34. And the percentages break out as 6% for year 1, and then 3.5 for the year 2 and year 3. And then there were some incidental other costs that were brought to us that we'll just tally into it. There was a change to a fiscal year 27 tax shelter, and so that amounts to $1,800, which would be going into year 1. There's an overnight stipend for teachers that are going to overnight, like Mira Vista and the Washington DC trip. So in fiscal year 27, it will be $4,125. And in fiscal year 28, it will be $2,750 because that's just a Mira Vista year. The 4125 would be both in the 1 year.
I'm sorry, what was 2028?
2750. And then there was a change in the language to longevity. We had a scale for longevity that when you hit the top of the schedule, then you start getting some longevity so that you wouldn't just stay flat. So language changed, and it's gonna be everyone with 10 years, and the number itself changed from what it was. So the impact of that for year 1 of the contract is $27,850. The impact for year 2 is $15,250, and the impact for year 3 is $10,250. So the total of all of that, and we'll probably move some of these other ones I just listed out to you separately into their appropriate year for the warrant. But the total is 697,803.80. And that came to the board for, there was a vote taken on it, last night.
Is the overnight stipend like a cumulative thing, or is that like you take a school trip and you get $4,000 for a night?
It
No,
was,
that's, you take the kids to Washington DC
Right,
as a chaperone, and it went from 150 to 350.
That's 4,000 total for all.
right, for all, that was like, not per a single, I was gonna say, otherwise,
Everybody.
my office is underpaying me a little bit for when I have to travel for
So they
work.
got, what, you said $150?
Yeah.
to 350?
Pleasure of traveling for
So
work.
then,
Exactly.
is the warrant to fund, to put that into a fund for the next 2 years?
This is, so the way that it works is that you negotiate a contract, you put a term on it, this is for 3 years.
Yep.
You break the costs out per year. You have to give it to the legislative body, the votors, for their approval.
Yep.
And then if they don't approve it, we would ask for the opportunity to have another meeting to entertain and discuss just the cost items.
That's
And we'll,
the,
of course, have how it was voted on and everything on the warrant.
that's the, Article 4 is if Article 3 fails. It gives us the ability to go back and negotiate costs only. And typically when you do that, it's a 1-year agreement, and you go back to the table in the fall. Article 5 would be the new Pro-Brown Northwood Academy that we gave to the Budget Committee a couple of years ago. And that will be in the deliberative session packet for the community to review.
So, I'm sorry, why isn't there a number here?
What's the number though?
Yeah,
The Co-Brown.
there
Article
will,
5.
Article 5, there will be a dollar amount there?
We never have dollar amounts on those tuition agreements.
Because the tuition amounts are in the budget, so it'd be
Okay.
duplicative if you raise.
So then the budget committee would recommend or not recommend, because there's no dollar amount.
Article 6 is kind of the textbook capital reserve. As I told you, we would be able to fund approximately 2 years of the textbooks with what's in the capital reserve. So this $30,000 would be to do the following second and third year. But the board would also be taking a formal vote for the program, which would be a 6-year program, so it would end up in the default. So again, you have options there for the board to consider. Article 7, this is a new one.
So we don't have
We don't have 7 and we don't have 8.
we just have down to 10.
Every other page.
Is there
Is there
another page?
Is there a copier that's available? If I have, then that's just on me. What happened is I didn't press two-sided. Mine's two-sided.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I did. So,
I can give you just a quick, I can give them a quick rundown of by the numbers if you want.
yeah, I mean, well,
You can get in the other room if you want.
I just didn't know if there was a copy machine.
Yeah, warrant article 8 is for a little replenishment of the building maintenance capital reserve fund. And that is $75,000 that we're recommending at this point, and that is due to the fact for the windows, which we saw in the CIP, so we would be rolling 75 in and taking it out to do the first phase of the windows. And Mr. Corey has looked at that and has some thoughts about how to phase that. And then 9 is the tuition that we've been talking about.
Wait, so 7, what's 8?
You just said 8, I think,
Oh,
what's
what
7?
was 7?
We needed 7.
7 was.
7 was the
you're
new
right.
capital reserve fund, this is what I said.
Right, I can go through.
Okay,
7
go
is the following. It's a capital reserve fund, and it states the following. Shall the district establish a capital reserve fund under the provisions of RSA 35:1 for the purpose of,
Copy your copy.
oh, you have it open? Let me just, what do you need, folks? You need
A copy of all of the warrant articles.
1,
We're missing 3.
7 and
Yeah, just do the whole
8.
set so that we don't have to piece pages together.
there they all are.
That's mine, if you need it.
Yeah.
I was thinking that too, I was just,
Like, electronics are always appreciated.
yeah, exactly.
There was some,
All right.
some
Where's that
numbers
candy
somewhere,
bucket from the
yeah.
other night?
Yeah, I just didn't know if this had Tammy's new
Seven,
one.
that room.
Yeah, seventh
The
grade.
room they just unlocked the copier.
Yeah, thank you,
I'll
sorry.
go into,
Yeah, pretzels.
well, they're running those copies, and I'll go back and happily review anything that comes out, but, Article 9 was the tuition capital reserve fund that we were discussing. We have $25,000 there to come out of the surplus balance, the current fund has 45. So the balance, if this was passed, would be 70 plus what's in the budget. Okay, now, I think the other thing that I would suggest to the budget committee that I've done in other towns is after this budget season is over, is have a discussion of what you want for caps on your capital reserve funds. So let's say you said $100,000 is the tuition cap, that's what we want in there. Then as long as it's $100,000, we don't touch it. Until we do touch it, you wouldn't see another warrant article for that. And I think you should do that same thing for special education, any of your trust funds. And just, I'm not sure if the budget committee is aware, the board took the position to allow the trustees of the trust fund to now invest the school district side of the trust funds in the CDs like the town does. So that is being run by them, so we're getting a better rate of interest, and right now it kind of matters, because it's a decent little bit of money every month. So that would be the tuition capital reserve fund, and then the grounds improvement capital reserve fund. There's presently $120,000 in that fund. I'm checking on that one. That's the only one I want to go back and make sure I'm correct on. And we're looking to put $15,000 on that. That is something we're preparing for. It's either, I think it's 2 years out to redo the paving in the parking lot. So that to me is kind of the way I see the purpose of a council like this. You know, we're saving up for that paving, so when we get to the paving, maybe we don't have the total amount, but we should have 80-90% of it funded through the capital reserve. And then the rest would come out of either the surplus or the budget. So it's 10 warrant articles. And I apologize, but I guarantee that's what happened. I've done that before. I think I'm doing wonderful things and I didn't hit two-sided.
I guess just in terms of feedback, I would like to see more put to the tuition capital reserve and less in the budget, because if you add the 45 plus 25 plus the 65, you're actually budgeting for like 6 or 7 potential movements, which is a lot, I think. Like a net of 6 or 7 would be.
4 or 5.
And potentially, if you're concerned about this not getting funded, moving it. I don't know if you could really move it above the textbook, I guess the other. Consider where you put it, I guess, is moving it above one of the building ones potentially.
My question would be,
So,
I think we'll know more next month. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. But is the town traditionally supported funding through the surplus?
Yes, those usually
Okay,
pass,
no, that's what I'm asking.
they usually pass because they don't have tax
My
impact.
notes are
Okay.
still.
It was more, I just, I don't have a strong feeling either way. I think it's more what do you want it to look like in 5 years? So now that you have a complete packet, I'll go back. So again, one is the election of officers, and it's the 2 school board members, the school district moderator, and the district treasurer. Warrant Article 2 is the operating budget. The board will be meeting prior to the public hearing, so we'll have those final numbers and I will insert them, but you won't see a big difference from what they're at right now. Article 3 is what Susan went over for the contract. First year, being the 247,585.96. The Article 4 is if Article 3, which is the contract fails, we hold one special meeting after we go back to the table with the teachers. Article 5 is the tuition agreement, which, as Donna stated, does not list the financial impact, so the board or budget committee may decide not to vote on that. 6 is the capital reserve for the textbooks. I put that first because I wanna make sure that we have those textbooks funded. If it was voted down though, I've already got this year funded, so I would get it into next year's budget. So we're not like taking a risk that we're not gonna have a language arts program. Article 7 is the newest one, so I just wanna touch base. That's for the purpose of studying, designing, constructing, installing, and furnishing an expansion of the Nottingham Elementary School, either through new building construction or the acquisition or lease of modular classrooms or a combination thereof. To be known as the School Expansion Reserve Fund, and to raise and appropriate the sum, which the board has not decided on. This was brought in last night, basically walked in, so this is part of our discussion on Thursday night. To be placed in the fund. The sum to come from the June 30th fund balance available for transfer on July 1, no amount to be raised from additional taxation. The board's rationale behind this is to, again, bring new eyes in to look at the facility to find out what is the most cost-effective way. I think I've heard that we're doing that on the town side with potentially with the fire department. So it's kind of the same thing, you know, because again, we could all walk the building and we see what we see. When you bring in a trained professional who's an architect, they sometimes see different things because of their training and that. So there'll probably most likely be a dollar amount inserted in there. And then the windows, that would be what I call phase 1. And I would be focusing in on our largest windows. If you think of our stairwells, so if you're driving by the building, you see the massive ones that are in the stairwells. Those are getting to the point where they're not the most efficient windows. So yes, you would get some payback for heating and things like that, but it wouldn't be enough to say, you know, oh, if you do this in 5 years, they'll pay for themselves. No, that's not true. But eventually they would pay for themselves, but by the time they did that, you'd probably be buying new windows. And then,
Just on Article 8, in
Yep.
the last line, you do have a typo,
oh, thank you,
balance, anticipated balance of
got it,
630.
greatly appreciated,
Can we go back to 7 for a second?
sure.
So shall the deposit establish a capital reserve fund under the provisions, blah, 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 for the purpose of studying, designing, constructing, installing, and furnishing an expansion? So is the money just for the study, which will then dictate the design, construction, and installation? Or is it for all of that?
The money that goes into the account can be used for any of those purposes.
Okay.
And the board was looking to get the most flexibility so that, let's say year
Yeah,
one,
it's
they
not-
choose to do a study.
Locked
Shouldn't that
up
be
on
or
something,
instead
yeah.
of and?
Yeah.
Now you're raising, yeah.
So then if in 2 years the community said, okay, we're gonna do X, and they take out a bond to do X, but now we have to your point, furnish X.
And or isn't it?
The goal would be to hopefully have money in this fund that could be used for furnishing because you've stated in its,
True, you have to state, if not, you
Right.
can't use it for that
Correct.
specifically, so I see I understand what
so
they're
the
doing.
attorney is giving the board as much
Yeah.
flexibility as possible to use the funds in the best way for the future expansion of the
So if
school.
you got a heck of a deal on the walkthrough and initial design, you just rolled any extra money towards the actual construction costs.
That's correct.
So what's the ballpark for what you're thinking of,
Oh, it does say where it comes.
I think with, I'm guessing, and again, this is just me, I don't wanna speak for the board, and they haven't discussed it, but I would think to get probably a quality study, I'm gonna be around $50,000.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was bandied about last night, so it would be to create it. There is some language missing here around, we can talk about it at some other time, but there's some, usually there's language in there, about who has the authority to expend from the fund when it's a new one that's being set up. So I think he just missed that.
Yeah, I don't think Dean sent it to us, but I'll make a note, we can work on that.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, Donna, can you say that again?
You,
Jen?
no, that answers my question. It was, I just wanted to make sure the wording was clear. And then now that I understand, it's really about establishing that fund and putting an initial deposit
Right,
in
that's
it,
exactly.
for lack of a better. So I wonder, and this could be picky, is, like, I wonder if for purposes of clarity, it would help to come up with a name for that fund now?
They put it in here that they want it to be known as the expansion. To be known as the School Expansion Reserve Fund.
Okay,
If you,
okay, yeah, I just saw it, okay.
do you think do you want me to change, I have capital reserve fund, I'll just change the name to say school expansion right under the warrant article, I agree with you. Yep.
So when we last talked, the concern I thought I walked away from this committee with was making sure that's differentiated between the maintenance. And I pulled the language on the maintenance and gave that to you the other night. So do you feel like that's?
Right, well, the maintenance one you said was clear, it can't be used for anything but maintenance. So this, so you couldn't do an engineering thing out of it, so that also leads towards the Wiley Wars.
Right. The thing that maybe for me might cause some confusion with voters is this is like the same language you see for what the town is doing, but what the town is trying to do is raise money to get to the guaranteed maximum price and really begin the protocol and the process for building. This is just a savings account that we're trying to put up, so
Right.
there might be some confusion there, I would think.
And that's why I think it's also important, once we get through this cycle, to take some time and go through these capital reserve accounts and set caps. You know, so that people in the community understand that the tuition one should be, X number of students that are valuing this. And the special education fund should be this total because it's 80% of the most expensive special ed placement. So there's clear rationale, so whoever takes over the chair, entering in knows what these accounts are for and what the expectation is, so you're not seeing an article if it's already fully funded.
So that would be like a policy. It wouldn't be a hard cap,
Well,
because if you
it-
had an issue, then you'd know you have to fund it more, but.
Well, I mean, what we've done in everywhere I've been is it's a gentleman's agreement.
Yeah.
Where we would sit here and we, because again, if there was a real reason that I needed to exceed a cap, I don't see if people have ever really balked at that.
Or maybe a target.
Yeah, you're thinking of the tax cap, I'm just thinking of just kinda,
Well, cause the tuition amount keeps going up, so like, you
Yeah.
can't set a
crawl up
fixed
every
number,
year.
a moving,
Yeah.
it's a moving target.
Yeah.
So about Article 9, if we're thinking about like moving stuff out of the operating budget on the tuition movements thing and funding that, should we just move that to ahead of warrant Article 8? And since these are funded in kind of the order, and
I have, again, that's a board input that I can bring back Thursday night, but they get to decide the order of the warrant. Are you keeping the tuition capital reserve fund at the same dollar amount?
no, well, I'm kind of coupling this with the other thing we talked about of pulling it out of the line item and just
Or at
having a
least some of it.
reserve, or
Okay.
pull some of it out and just having this is the, purpose of this fund.
So you'd like to see, just so I understand correctly, the operating budget line item be reduced, that this article be increased, but basically still the same dollar amount we're targeting?
Like, so-
Okay.
or covering what you're calling the same number of students or whatever.
Yep, okay.
For your thing,
Yep.
but just having it set in that, and then, like you said, if we eventually say, okay, that's the target balance.
Yep.
You get to that point, you can sit at that point
Correct,
and have it as the rainy day fund for your move-ins and not have to worry about it again.
that's correct. Yeah, and I think when you get to that point, especially the one, I mean, it has a big balance this year, so we didn't put anything in. but special ed can get eaten up really quickly. So when I look at priority, that would still be my number one, because that's probably the piece that none of us could predict, because, you know, we're talking about move-ins, but if it's a special move-in that requires, you know, some students require nurses and feeding tubes and all sorts of, you know, services, OT, PT. So I would really like to see you get up to like 80% of $400,000 or $320,000 eventually, so you're still $100,000 to go, but you can get there over time. You know, that's part of the problem, that, like, I wish there was a mechanism where we do the budget before we know the surplus. You know, so that's part of the problem, and then when we return a large surplus, we get that roller coaster on the taxes, which people don't appreciate that either.
Yeah, I thought it was always around 350.
No, that's where I would like to see it.
I mean, that was prior years, you know, we were pretty close to that.
That's what I mean, that 2 or 3% of a budget, but obviously that's gone up because it, you know, when it was 350, that might have been a $15 million budget.
Yeah.
We're approaching 18 million now.
So the anomaly year too, that's people have in their minds, which I think is really alarming.
Yeah, you're saying this Article 7 again for the designing, didn't we already design for the school addition before? What would that cost the taxpayers?
It's like 100 and some odd
It was
thousand
like
dollars.
I think it was a grant that came in at 117, and I can't remember honestly if we did 95 or 117 in that warrant article, but it was one of those two numbers.
I think,
And it was, we used a grant from the state, and it brought in the Sam and Delia, the architects, and brought us up to they did all the analysis and some drawings, and
It's a conceptual design up through an estimate.
they brought in their subs to look at
and we still have that document. So that's why I think the 50,000 is gonna get it, cause you're not gonna be asking somebody basically to start from scratch. I know some places don't like to use other people's product.
Every consultant will find a reason not to,
Oh, yes, always.
not to utilize
Yeah.
some other consultants.
Yep.
use the same
Every
guys again. We had Heckman
Same
Construction
thing
was
with the
really
high school, it
good.
was cheaper, they said, to tear whole school down, rebuild new, than to revamp it.
There's not a lot of options for us though,
I don't
too,
think
in
people
many
do that to
ways,
their
because we
houses.
can't build up anywhere anymore, so it's all gonna come out.
So can we go back to 9?
Sure.
Because what I'm, so 9 is only for move-ins, right? And what Lincoln was just suggesting is that we pull out of the operating budget and have it, all of it here.
Well, I think you eventually try to get yourself to that point, and then,
This is,
So, okay, so to the average voter who goes to vote and they don't read anything until they get into the booth and they start to read this, how are they gonna understand the difference between this tuition capital reserve? They're not gonna connect to what move-ins are.
they're never gonna read the budget though.
But
But what's the difference? There's a
You could
tuition.
say the same thing about maintenance, right? There's a
No.
maintenance line item, and then there's some maintenance
Because
capital
this says,
reserve.
because this says tuition.
But this article doesn't say anything about move-ins, we're
Right.
adding that topic. I mean,
Okay,
that's
but
the way,
then, but
that's
then that
the,
suggests that all of this covers all tuition, not just move-ins.
no, I'm just saying, we are not saying in the article move-ins.
I understand.
We're only going to the trust fund in the event of unexpected move-ins. And if we're going to a trust fund, to me, it has to have a.
I understand.
Okay.
I understand what you're
okay.
doing. I'm just saying to the voter,
Right,
you know, if they do look at the budget, they see a line that says tuition, it's in the budget, and then what is it? So to me, it's just how you clarify and
Okay.
present this.
okay.
Yeah, I should just take that back to the board with some clarification around this is to offset
Yep.
move-ins that aren't accounted for or something
Something
of
like
that
that.
nature.
Exactly,
Unexpected move-ins.
exactly.
So when we do
Yeah.
the write-up at the deliberative and everything, I think we typically touch that, yeah.
We usually talk about
Like,
each
I would
word
just-
and what they sort
yeah.
of mean, so.
Yeah, but again, I'm not
Unexpected
worried about the
increases in
deliberative,
tuition
I'm worried
costs
about the
typically
people
due
who
to
go to vote.
you know,
Right.
People who
additional
go to
new
vote who
students
don't read the
moving into town.
deliberative, I don't
Yep.
think they're gonna be
Okay.
going
And then
line by
just-
line through the.
budget. Add a little more than just
and
minimal.
then looking.
Right, no, we'll wordsmith it.
But then
I
they
agree
might
with you
wonder why this
totally.
is such a small
I
number.
think this group knows what we're talking about
Absolutely.
for move-ins, but I think to Donna's point, we wanna make sure that this person sitting in the audience seeing this for the first time understands what it is, so I think unexpected move-ins kind of clarifies, you know, with some probably further wording, that this is not something we're just going to dip into just because of tuition, this is, you know, family moved in and they have triplets and they're all going to Cole Brown.
Correct.
And I mean, I'm assuming that your operating mode, once that fund is reasonably established, would be a, you know, single move-in happens, you probably just find it in your operating budget.
Correct,
You have the triplets move in.
right.
And now there's a reserve fund, rather than tanking your operating budget and the surplus that then removes all of your safety net.
Yep.
You're moving to that.
My operating procedure that I would suggest is always the operating budget to begin. Cause there's nothing that prevents me in April from going to the board and saying, remember those triplets that moved in September? They've put us over in tuition now, I would like to dip into the capital reserve. But I think you always go to the operating first, so that you're not running into, you know, now all of a sudden your capital reserve fund became part of your surplus, that's not your goal.
I'd be interested in seeing what your cap or target would be for that. I'm not asking for that answer right now, I'm just saying I would be interested in seeing that.
You never state
For the
that either.
tuition piece?
No, you wouldn't state it, but
Be a guidance of 80, whatever it is, 5
Yeah.
students
But
or.
I get it, I understand, I'll let it go. I just believe that there should be an attempt to look at historical data and whether or not that can inform just clearly putting it in the operating budget.
I think we can look at that, and I think it's something that we could start to track now, cause there isn't a wealth of historical data. There's a ton of boxes.
So you could, I mean, look at the enrollment report for September and the enrollment report for May
Right.
for any given school year and see whether net you ended up with more high school students at the end of the year than you started with.
Right.
And assume that's from move-ins and move-outs.
And then I agree with Lincoln that, you know, the first goal would always be to fund it out of the operating budget.
Yeah, because the flip side is you're putting money into well, I take it back, never mind.
That's why I'd
They're
rather
just-
put it in the capital reserve than put it in the operating budget, because it's money you very well might not spend, so like, why are we
But then it's sitting
padding
there.
the operating budget?
But then the flip side is sitting there in capital
It's earning
reserve
it, it's earning it.
Adding to the wrong thing.
You could always at some point decide, we don't need this capital reserve anymore.
And it's
Or-
okay because it's
Dissolve
coming out of,
it.
it's coming out of the,
I mean, you can't just take it out for other purposes, but you could dissolve it.
yeah.
This is always the line, this line for not just move-in, but just tuition in general on high school, it's always.
And it's because we're budgeting to the exact number of students we have right now.
Right.
Like in December, how many students are going to each. So part of it, if it wasn't a separate line, it was, they were padded, it was 3 extra for each school or
Yeah.
whatever.
Right.
And so that's, we got rid of the padding, but
Right.
then we have to.
I mean, the tuition lines, special ed, and unknown maintenance are the 3 areas that are always gonna be a concern, and that's kind of what I would prioritize in capital reserve funds.
Excellent. Any other questions on the warrant?
I have one.
Yeah,
We were looking for your feedback for the.
that's right, I'm sorry, you said that on,
The,
when we were just talking about tuition, no, yes, tuition, right? You asked about the
I've got
25.
tuition, so I think we've kind of got a sense of that.
Well, you good with that number? That was a number you had asked about, the 25K.
Yeah, for the one that's the reserve one, the additional reserve going from like
The new
1.5.
School expansion reserve,
No,
whatever we're calling it.
the,
10,
did you put that on this?
Tuition reserve.
Nope, it's, right now, we have, the additional reserve fund balance for emergencies, the state allows us to do
Oh, yeah,
5%. And we were considering doing something like that.
And again, it's an option I brought to the board last night in discussion. It doesn't necessarily have to go for this budget cycle. But right now, many years ago, you approved 1.5% to have as your unreserved fund balance surplus that the board keeps and retain. The state recently changed that percentage that you are allowed to do if you vote on it through a warrant article to 5%. Now, I'm not saying it should be 5% because that's basically $1 million, give or take a few dollars on our budget. But I think moving from the 1.5 to whatever number in between that you feel comfortable with is something I would recommend you do, if not this budget cycle, in a budget cycle in the future, because when you look at what we dropped $208,000 on the heating system, and that we did piping and things like that. We didn't do a boiler. I did boilers right before I came here, and boilers are between $250,000 and $500,000.
We got new boilers, so,
No, I know you do, but I'm just saying that,
right, something like that.
right, but for that discussion point, I think you wanna identify what is like the roof, what would the roof cost? If it was a major section or something, and have that type of fail-safe in. And I think you could do that best by changing that percentage, cause you already have 1.5 sitting there, which we put away $200,000, which is not 1.5. It's still below 1.5. But if you said you were going to 3, that means you're about $540,000.
So the warrant was up to 1.5, right? And then the
It-
board
yes.
decides each year how much.
Correct. And the budget goes up each year, so you do have a built-in savings account. But again, I'm just looking at, as an outsider coming in who's done this for a while and knowing what the major catastrophe could be, I think you should have that someplace, cause where are you gonna find it?
That's true, I thought it was because of the town, that's why we had it there, cause the school fell in the town in case something major happened.
Right.
Right, and that's why we kept it like, what, 15%, wasn't like 17 or something, the town and the capital.
The
Well,
town
Towns-
doesn't have to give that money to the.
Yeah, so the town
Yeah, I
has a,
thought that
as
Well,
a general,
I
fund
asked
and a-
before,
Isn't
years
it?
ago, that was
Yeah.
supposed to cover
The-
even
the
the
range.
school.
the
just in case.
GFO, the GFOA makes a recommendation to hold like 18%, and that's different with the town, cause you can roll that and build it year over year. So that's why the state came in with this option for school districts, because we had no buffer, so we can't roll these year over year. But it's just there for an emergency, and we'd have to come back before this body to use it. So we either have an overspend situation or just about an overspend situation, an emergency.
I wrote it down here, this is what, I'm not saying you're not correct, I'm
Well,
just saying this is what
you know-
we were told.
Yep.
8 to 17% for unassigned fund balance, right, we use
For the
12%.
town.
That's the town,
Yep.
that's town.
Yeah, but he's,
Well,
I
it
believe.
says New Hampshire recommends, and it says includes the school budget, I wrote, cause I asked that question, maybe I got the wrong information.
No, I think
I don't think
ultimately
so.
you should I think
That's,
Robert may be correct, because ultimately,
Okay.
the town is responsible for their schools. And this is a big argument going on in one of the communities in New Hampshire right now with the funding issue.
because, just to say something, depending on how much money is in there, because if the town budget is, what's the town budget? 4,000, I mean, 4 million,
Yeah.
5 million, there's like $2 million in here, that's not, you know, what I mean, it was supposed to cover, it made sense, because it's supposed to cover the school. That's what it's for, cause the school gets the money from the town, right, cause the town gets the money from the taxpayers.
But it's two separate entities though,
Entities,
corporate
totally.
entities, and just in order to be efficient, the town provides the voting and they provide the
Billing.
raising of the appropriations, but those funds have to go over to the school district.
Yeah.
They're school district funds and segregated, but you,
So
I'm not
my
saying that
point
you're
is,
wrong,
my
it could
point
be
is,
that.
you take the
I-
town's budget, $5 million, and you times it by 12%, you're looking at $600,000. And when we were talking about this, and it fluctuates, right? The general fund, surplus fund, and the reserve fund, I kept getting different answers what the fund was, you know what I mean, through different, you know, people, of course. 1.5 million to 2.3 million, and it, you know, grows when tax money comes in, it goes, so that's supposed to include the school.
I would.
I mean, it's simple.
I disagree.
What's that?
For
Well,
unknown.
we can ask Alan, maybe she'll know.
Well, we got two board BOS people here and you guys do like the overlay and all that, so you know all the ins and outs of.
Yeah, we never, I mean.
Cause
Yeah.
it wouldn't make
We're gonna
sense.
come a knocking.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
No, I would suggest getting clarification on that, because I'm not far from where Robert is on this ultimately, and I think that's one of the big questions that's going on up in Claremont. Because yes, you're separate legal entities, but it's ultimately the town.
Right,
And again,
the
that's what
town's responsible.
I'm just suggesting get clarification,
Yeah.
because I think that's why most towns, like when I was in Hollis, we had almost $6 million in the town fund for the same reason. Because if the building had a major catastrophe, and I'm not saying that the school doesn't owe it back to the town, I'm not saying that like it's this, free credit card, I'm just saying this is kind of, I would do some further research.
Cause if it's not the case, then the town shouldn't have this much money then in the general fund, then. That's my point. Shouldn't have this much money in there. I mean, wait to see how much is in there.
Claremont is different though. Claremont is like Manchester. Manchester is a city. And so their school districts are not separate entities, they're dependent. They're called dependent
Yep.
school districts that roll under. And so the mayor and city council and all of that, they are the final arbiters. In
That's why I
fact,
think,
like,
I think just clarification, because it does have a lot to do with your charter
Claremont is a
and your
city,
incorporation and all
Yes,
those
it's a city.
details.
pretty sure.
So with the item at hand though is how much should be available to the school from whatever it is, whether it's this 1.5% that needs to be increased or
Correct.
or if it already exists. But what's an appropriate amount for the, this something happens unknown, a catastrophe, as you say, what should that be? And the question is that 1.5% or whatever it's considered currently adequate or not?
Is it a percentage of what's raised and appropriated, or is it a percentage of?
It's percentage of the operating budget
Yeah,
For the school.
for the school.
that's how the town works too, though.
That's
Percentage of
RSA,
operating.
what,
So,
194? Go look at it.
And again, I don't think,
RSA
I don't wanna say that this should be on this year, but I just think it's prudent to have that discussion. Because again, we've done an excellent job in terms of what we have in capital reserves, what we have for the unreserved fund balance. But I just think as costs continue to escalate, we have to continue to look at those percentages of what we put away for that rainy day.
I think you best to wait till next year based on our
And,
evaluation.
and that's fine.
Yes.
No, I have no problem with that. I just think I'd be remiss,
Advice.
It's a
and I'd
good
rather bring it up now.
thing to start to get it out now.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So-
One more-
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, cause I was gonna start a new conversation.
Oh,
So
I just seen, warrant article 3, how many teachers is that included for this,
I think Catherine said it was 46 last night.
46
Yeah.
teachers?
I believe that's what
So I
Catherine,
I jotted it down.
yeah, that's what I
Do you
have.
have it too?
Go ahead. 46, yeah, total of 46. Yeah.
Okay, and the
But
parents are
that's-
separate then.
Does
that's-
that include the nurse
Parents.
and the librarian and all?
Yes.
It's everybody who's in the CBA.
I've read this.
So
They're
there's
not in the
Speech,
seat, they're
teaching
not in the
guidance.
seat.
Nurses.
the nurses.
Is the librarian?
I
We
thought
just
the
talked
regular
about that.
librarian is and the library aid's not.
So,
I know the nurses
yeah,
From
so-
the earlier
And the
conversation,
guidance
library
counselors.
wasn't.
and the guidance counselors.
so you got 46 total, but and they're strewn out throughout this budget into different
Yep.
function
Is
areas.
that number there on the left-hand side, I couldn't read.
It's a,
Is that 46? Yep.
46, and
Oh, jeez,
includes
okay.
5 case managers, 2 guidance counselors, 2 speech pathologists, 1 OT, 2 reading specialists, 1 math specialist. And then on the para side, there were 23 special ed and 3 regular ed. There's 1 library media specialist. And we also have a Title I tutor not included in that, but just in the overall count of what we have for staff. And you've got a preschool coordinator and you've got a part-time preschool para. So that would be the full complement, not including like your maintenance and your.
So when you
And
read
that's
the-
23 total? I'm sorry, I meant.
There's
23.
23 special ed and 3 regular ed, and those are located in the kindergarten.
when you read the percentages initially, not including longevity and the stipends, those were just salary, or is that salary and benefits?
I'm sorry,
When you, for Article 3 for the teacher contract, you said 6%, 3.5%, 3.5%. Is that just salary, or is that salary and benefits? Is
we're
it?
told that that includes the FICA, so those
It says
FICAs.
benefits in it, right?
But not, were there any changes in benefits in terms of
No, you mean health insurance?
any benefits
In the
that they
contract.
get?
I think the only one Susan mentioned is just the matching went from
Tax shelter.
150, the 403B
Okay,
went from 150 to 300, and I hate to say, we don't have that many people that participate.
So is that part of the 6% or those are the other numbers you
Those,
wrote?
these are add-ons, so the
Okay.
way it is, you've got, so the year one, year two, year three, the 247, the 192, and the 195. That includes your FICA and your
Salary.
other benefits, statutory type benefits, but then in addition to that, we've got these other 6 items
Okay.
that are benefit changes.
So like when you raise increasing the salary also increases the retirement cost because it's a percentage.
Correct.
I should say as well that the negotiating team also restructured the schedule and removed the first 2 steps.
Oh, they did?
And we pick up an extra school day. Teachers now do duties.
Really?
Yep.
I-
What kind of duties?
Teachers are gonna,
Recess and lunch.
Wow.
Yep.
one a week roughly.
Yeah, and Cammy will go through that at the public hearing, but there are some management pieces too.
You know, the other thing that we had an evergreen clause. We were one of the few
Yep.
in the state to have it. That's out.
That's out.
For
And that,
any new or is it just out?
I guess.
It's not this contract, so there isn't an evergreen at year 4 or whatever it would be.
no, it's gone, which means when you go to the table, the people across from you are not sitting there knowing you're getting a raise anyways. So I think that's a big get from my opinion and in talking to a couple of the lawyers I've dealt with in the past. That was one of the goals.
So, my request is that you have what the total percent increase is going to be, including the warrant articles. Because this is the 3%, right? And I think I'm coming out an additional 5 to 6%. Not knowing, we don't have all the numbers right now, I just threw in some numbers. So, you know, you're looking at a 8 to 9% increase, I think.
But which
And I
numbers
don't-
are you adding in? Cause it would only be Article 3.
3, because none of the
Yeah,
others
so I
have-
think I put like 50,000, no, 7, we don't have anything in 7.
That's still not raised and appropriated, that's from unassigned.
Oh, that's true.
So
I
only
might not
Article
have done,
3 is-
so anyway,
Okay, I
my
understand your point,
request
yes.
is,
You'd like to know what the
what the
overall
total,
picture
cause
is.
I think we're gonna be asked that.
Yep.
You know, people are screaming about this 15%
Can you
increase.
just say that again, just so I get my
What
head
the
around it?
total percent increase of the budget is going to be, so it's gonna be more than the
Oh,
3%,
Assuming the warrant articles or
including the
whatever.
warrant articles.
If the warrants pass, what would the
Yes.
total
Yeah.
Yes.
increase be?
So the whole cumulative.
Compared to the
Right.
total from last year with the warrants. So
Yes.
it's not just a budget to budget and warrants, look, it's a budget and warrants from 26 to a budget and warrants in 27. And basically, the logic probably behind this, if I'm interpreting it right, is that's how the town talks about this because of the tax cap.
Right,
And if the school had a tax cap, which obviously it doesn't, but if it
Doesn't.
did, that's how you would have to do the calculation.
But then you should also include the offsetting revenue.
But then there
Which
would
is
be
what the
also-
town did.
Right,
yeah, you
Yeah.
have to, so the revenue helps
we
you
don't
out.
know what it is
with the
until-
tax
They'll
cap.
know what,
But then they will.
they should know what
Yeah.
what the offsetting revenue is.
But so the idea I think would be is giving sort of an apples to apples type comparison so people understand the number they're looking at.
Yep.
And the revenues, we're gonna get revenues for the next
Yeah,
meeting.
revenues are gonna happen over the weekend.
And then, the valuation, you know, the new valuation is 1,462,250, 713, so that will drive what the tax, we talked about the tax, hoping to have that, but, but that's the key number to divide stuff into to get it.
Yeah, and we talked about, just for educational purposes, we talked about this on Tuesday, Sue, I don't know if you've had a chance to let those folks know, but that group that was gonna come in to give the presentation.
Oh, yeah. So
Um,
I asked Andy about that. I sent you
yeah,
an email.
I think the budget committee was fully supportive of it, we just didn't think it was our place to have a vote or say or whatever. So I think Ellen is gonna coordinate and have that, the idea is to have it at the
Yes.
school just for
Yeah.
capacity reasons, if no other else.
And we
but-
discussed that last night.
You did,
We're
okay,
gonna
excellent.
do, they will just need to do a facilities use form, just like any other organization. And we also said that we would probably do it like we do with our PTA events, it's a non-school sponsored event, but held at the school.
Yeah.
Yep.
Same idea, but no, just letting you know that we were.
And I've spoken to the individual who dropped the material off, and she, from my discussion with her, was pleased with that. So I had asked her if we could wait until after budget season, but I know there was some discussion about before budget season, and I just don't know how we fit it all in.
Well, February was kind of like what we talked about, it was about before deliberative.
And I will call her back and try to see if we can find dates, because the other question would be, that organization speaks regularly, so I don't know what they have for availability to come to the town.
And you can check with Ellen too, the town administrator, she had talked about reaching out to them, so just making sure we're not double booking and duplicating efforts.
Right, and Ellen and I have communicated and spoken, so I think we'll be
You're already
fine.
on
Great.
top of it.
They had stuff on their website scheduled like January 28th. They had two in late part of January, so there might still be some February open.
Can we get the proposed new schedule, the wage schedule,
The new,
salary schedule?
yes, we'll need to provide you with the entire contract and the attached schedule for next week. I think that we could probably send over prior, so they have it, the whole contract with the schedule. Teacher's contract. Oh, it's not done yet from the lawyer?
Right. I think
Could send the
there's two
schedule
different, I think there's two different things. I think the schedule is done,
Okay.
okay? I don't think what I'll call the red line version is complete.
Okay, so we can get the schedule to that.
Yeah, I will do our best.
Oh, no, I'm not saying, I'm just,
Well, particularly when
Okay.
two steps were eliminated, I'm curious
So,
to
yeah.
see what
Right.
the.
Mhm.
so the entry level salary now is in the 50s. So when you, just sort of refresh my memory, because I haven't been on the budget committee for a bit. So typically when all our stuff comes to you for the hearing, we've already weighed in on it and said the board recommends this, or do you typically,
I don't
that's what I seem to recall.
So,
I don't know if the school board has, I know we don't.
yes, because after deliberative, the school board sometimes re-votes after, and the budget committee can also re-vote
Yes, after
But
delivery.
typically, by the time it gets here, you've done your
Sorry, I
recommendations.
thought we were talking public hearing,
I think, maybe not, cause we could change the,
cause I don't think we vote
Yes.
before public hearing.
No.
No, and I don't think we've had that input before.
so we could, cause the budget committee could change the amounts, so then you would have to re.
So we're gonna post a meeting, and so we're gonna,
I mean, many of the school districts I've been at, the board takes a position because in a lot of ways, they're moving it forward. The board also schedules a meeting after the public session is over because they can choose to re-vote, they could choose to remove an article. I mean, if 10 people showed up and said, we don't wanna do the windows, the board may choose to do that,
That's-
so.
That's how we're doing it.
But-
Right, that's-
But we're doing the public hearings on Thursday, next Thursday, and then we have a meeting scheduled for the following Tuesday to do all of our final votes with a snow day.
But we did talk last year, because when we had our votes, we didn't have their votes. And we did want their votes, right, remember?
yeah, I know,
We didn't
I
have
guess
one.
it's gone both ways, because I can recall coming in and voting to make sure that the budget committee
Yeah.
could tell, and that the people in the community coming in for the hearing would know what the board's position was on it.
Yeah,
And
we,
typically you
and you
don't
can
have to
always change
re-vote
it, yeah.
them, but,
So
we were concerned
Maybe
about that
leaning towards-
last year.
yeah, I thought that we
Yep.
typically voted before the
Yeah.
budget.
My question would be, is this room available at 6 o'clock on the same night of the public hearing? Or do I just have to call Ellen?
Yeah, call
Cause then
Ellen.
we
would be
could
easier.
meet,
Should be available.
okay, so we could meet, take our positions, then you open the meeting at 7, we can give you our positions on each of the warrants. And then the board just goes into recess during the public hearing. And then they can go back if they need to change something after the public hearing is over and re-vote.
I don't think we can change anything like fundamental that we gave to you, because you've had the hearing and you're gonna
No, but you
vote.
could re-vote.
Yeah, we can, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
But are you saying that you would give us your votes, we would have the public hearing, then we would have our votes, and then you would have the opportunity to change yours after that? Is that what
Well,
you?
If we change the budget, so if we cut something, they should be able to re-vote because they may not support what
Well,
the
the-
budget committee.
The other thing is the school board still has the ability to take a
They
warrant
can do it
article
after
off.
deliberative too.
Yeah, I mean, we've never done that,
The school board has re-voted after deliberative.
after deliberative.
Usually you don't, there's not enough of a change of
Between your
budget committee
hearing
level.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I mean, deliberative is what you
Yeah,
have,
that's-
in
I've
a
been
sense,
here.
but you can do
Budget
both.
committees voted after deliberative too.
Yeah,
Yeah, the budget committee can also change their recommendations
Yeah,
after
that we
deliberative.
ended up with.
Yeah, we had a meeting last year after deliberative, which was all
Well,
of
we-
2 seconds to say
yeah.
we weren't changing our votes.
Right.
But yeah,
Exactly.
just in case it got massively changed at deliberative.
But we do want your votes for the public for our public hearing.
Your
for
review.
vote. Yep. Yep.
okay, super. Thank you, am I good to
I think we're all good. Anybody have any other questions?
second night of fun and festivities?
Thank you.
No, thank you all, it's been a
Appreciate
very
it.
good process and we'll go to the next step next week and see what the community tells us. Thank you, have a good night,
Thank
safe
you very
travels.
much, appreciate it.
The Dover stuff was the only one.
Next item on our agenda would be meeting minutes, which would have been from 2 days ago. We don't have those yet. So we'll do that at our next meeting. Assuming nothing's changed in the committees in the last 2 days. Anybody have any new business, anything they'd like to bring up? Okay, I'm gonna bring up one item, the public hearings next week. After being schooled, so to speak, and trained on exactly what a public hearing is and how the conduct is supposed to work within a public hearing. I've talked to a few other folks and watched several other towns how they do it, and typically the public hearings are just the public coming up and speaking and all of those comments being received. And then the public hearing is closed and then discussions happen at the board level. The reasoning being behind that is that even the way that we answer questions could be considered impairing or influencing the way somebody is speaking or wants to speak or wants to make a statement, and that even can be considered an infringement on First Amendment rights. Public hearings are very, very different than any other public comment section within a public meeting. This is all the things I learned last year. So the recommendations that I received was to not have any back and forth during the public hearing. So that would be my recommendation to the board as to how we do that. Now, if somebody has a specific question and wants to
Now they're
direct
getting
it through the
questions.
chair
Yeah.
and it's,
So you would direct the question to either the town manager or the
and
superintendent.
then the
if they have a
superintendent,
question.
if they can answer something very specifically, but it's, I think we wanna be very careful and make sure it doesn't turn into some sort of ideological or back and forth. And also, I mean, we've met in public sessions for months now. It's not necessary to try to justify everything we've done to whoever happens to be asking questions. That's sort of one of the other points, is to try to I guess guide and steer the meeting better. But I wanted to bring it to the board's attention that that is the way that I was recommended to run the public hearing, and that is, after what I've learned, the way I think would be most helpful to run the public hearing. But before sort of changing where it was much more of an open format that we've had in the past, I just wanted to talk about it with the board and see if anybody had any objections, concerns, thought we should do it different.
Can I just clarify?
Yeah.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, people would come in,
Yep.
you'd open the public hearing.
Yep.
And the parties, town and school, they would present, and then they have to by statute, present the expenditures and the revenues and
Yep.
and also say the default, so
Yep.
provide that. You guys would give guidance, we want it by line, we want it by function, however we want it. You might ask some probing questions if you think something's missing, we would answer, the folks out here would answer it, and then the public has an opportunity to ask questions.
Or make
or
comments.
make
It's
statements.
really more the public's opportunity to make statements. It's not supposed to be so much back and forth on
Right.
questions. If there's a clarifying, like, I don't understand exactly what this means or something, then that. But I was told you really wanna stay away from whys or, you know, what was the thought process here or whatever, because I guess even in explaining that, you can be trying to influence or persuade the
it's like-
public. And so the thought is that because a public hearing is a very, very different entity than a public comment session at a meeting. It needs to be-
So then you close down the public comment part, and now it's the deliberation part for
Public hearing,
for this
not
party.
comment. Public hearing.
The
not
public
public.
hearing
And then we would
part.
But we're
close
not
the-
gonna vote that night, so we
Right.
wouldn't even have any discussion.
So there wouldn't be any discussion or anything, but later on, like the town and the school board reps, they can participate and answer questions and clarify during that deliberation process with the committee, with the budget committee.
The following meeting.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yeah, cause that's one thing,
Just say the council.
one thing I've found with,
Hold on, let's just make sure everybody's on board
Yeah.
with this before we
ahead.
go to the next thing.
So that was,
So at the following meeting on the following Tuesday,
Tuesday.
we would go through all of the budgets and the warrant articles. If we had questions for the superintendent or the town manager, we can ask them.
And if there was any final
Clarifying.
adjustments we're trying to make, anything before
We
we
can-
make our final
We can make
recommendations.
motions to make changes,
Yes.
then we can do our recommendations.
Yes.
so I was just gonna add to that, I've seen in the past where at public hearings, the budget committee or select board in some cases have used that as an opportunity to ask additional questions, right? That, you know, maybe things that came out of this discussion or new questions that came up since then, but that's really not the purpose of the public hearing.
No.
It's not about us asking more questions that came
It's
up,
supposed
it's
to be
about,
the public having unfettered and unbiased ability to come up and
Yeah.
tell us their opinions or their
so even if
thoughts.
we have additional questions, we should save them for that meeting on
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yes,
I just want to.
And you would explain all of that at the beginning of the public hearing. that
yes,
we're not
yeah,
gonna-
my
we're not
intent is
gonna
to
respond
explain,
to
this
your
is, this is different than it's been in the past.
Right.
This isn't gonna be a back and forth, we're not gonna be answering questions typically or responding, this is really to encourage the public to come up and tell us what they think of the budget that's being presented to them.
It's kind of how you handle your public comment section of your meetings.
And then we close it up and.
Yeah.
and-
Yeah, I've watched a lot in Manchester that can get pretty contentious, and those, there is never a back and forth. And when there is, which occasionally happens, it's stymied immediately and dealt with.
Yeah.
Because it ends up, the second it starts going back and forth, it escalates, and then things
Yep.
get.
Yep.
And then people don't have the ability to speak their mind or don't feel safe,
Yeah.
you know, speaking their mind, and you don't ever wanna feel or make it like you're influencing them, so.
I hope we have a lot of people show up in the hearings.
I would love
me
to see
too.
somebody from the public, we haven't seen one yet, I don't.
I think there's been like 3 here this whole process.
Maybe.
It's the
Excellent.
poorly- poorly attended.
Okay, anybody else have any new business, other new business? I'll remind everybody that our next meeting is next Thursday, and that is the public hearings.
I guess on the question of what time does the deliberative
It's-
start,
it's
did
still
we
7,
figure
I
out?
think, right?
Public hearing is at
Public hearing.
7.
So,
But you said you thought deliberative for the town was at 8 AM, I thought it was at 9 AM. Did anyone figure out?
It's usually 9. I mean,
Yeah, we haven't talked about deliberative, but
I mean, that schedule should be set already, though.
should be, I just don't know.
it's just
when it
not
is.
on
It's
here,
it's
which
not,
is.
it's not on the town website either, or the town calendar.
Right, I'm just
so.
surprised that it's not
Tax rates for
posted.
everybody.
And we think it's 9.
I didn't have it in here, cause I didn't know
I
when it
might
was
have
gonna
put
be.
8 just so I was
Ready.
early, I don't.
Or
know.
if you're volunteering or
You put
helping, you
7?
gotta be there, right? Who knows, but
You one of those people?
with
No,
that,
maybe check-in it starts at
I'll
8, 'cause the
entertain a motion to
supervisor's-
adjourn.
Right.
So moved.
Motion by Tim, second by Donna, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, meeting is adjourned at
Steve,
8:50.